Snow dusted the quiet street like unfinished thoughts when the CEO's car died in front of a modest brick house, its hood yawning open as if the engine itself had finally given up on pretending. He stood there in a tailored coat that cost more than the porch behind him, phone buzzing with missed calls, calendar screaming deadlines, his breath fogging the air with irritation and exhaustion. Christmas was 3 days away, and he had already decided it would pass like every other obligation he could not afford to feel. Then he noticed the man in work-worn sleeves stepping closer, grease-stained hands steady and calm, and a little girl beside him clutching a mug with both mittened palms, her red coat bright against the gray day. In that quiet, broken moment, the CEO did not know it yet, but the machine that needed repair was not the car. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that find us when we least expect them, take a second to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel Grandma Dearie so stories like this keep reaching hearts that are too busy to listen. The CEO had built his life on speed and certainty, on sharp decisions made from glass offices that never smelled of oil or snow. He measured worth in quarterly reports and believed time was something to conquer. Christmas had become a branding exercise, a few checks written, a gala attended, a tree lit for cameras before the lights were switched off again. He told himself this was maturity, this distance from sentiment. Yet standing on that sidewalk, watching the mechanic work without hurry, he felt something unfamiliar tighten in his chest. The man moved with care learned from years of fixing what others discarded, tightening bolts as if each turn mattered. The little girl watched with quiet pride, her eyes following every motion, the steam from her cup curling into the cold like a promise that warmth still existed. The house behind them wore simple decorations, a wreath on the door, soft lights glowing through the window. Inside, laughter flickered like candlelight, imperfect but real. The CEO felt the ache of something he had traded away without noticing. His own childhood Christmases surfaced uninvited, a memory of his father's hands smelling of metal after long shifts, the way a repaired radio once brought music back into a silent room. He had buried those memories under ambition, telling himself they were distractions. Now they rose, stubborn and vivid, as the mechanic's hands coaxed life back into the stalled engine. Time slowed. Snow continued its gentle fall. The CEO's phone buzzed again, but he silenced it without thinking. The little girl took a careful sip from her mug, cocoa smudging her lip, and smiled at the engine as if it were a living thing responding to kindness. That smile unsettled him more than any boardroom confrontation ever had. It carried no agenda, no expectation, only faith that effort mattered. He realized how long it had been since anyone looked at his work that way, not as profit or failure, but as something done with care. The mechanic finished, wiped his hands on a rag, and nodded toward the engine, confidence quiet and earned. The car came alive with a steady hum, a small victory against the cold. Relief washed over the CEO, followed by something heavier. Gratitude, he knew, but also shame for how rarely he allowed himself to feel it. He reached for his wallet, reflexive, ready to solve the moment with money, and stopped. The man's eyes were gentle, not impressed, not resentful. The little girl's gaze held a question that had nothing to do with payment. In that pause, the CEO understood that some repairs demanded presence, not transactions. They stood together for a moment longer, the repaired engine warming the air, the house lights glowing brighter as dusk approached. The CEO noticed the simplicity of the scene, how joy had not been scheduled or optimized, how it existed because people showed up for one another. He thought of the empty penthouse waiting for him, the untouched tree, the catered meals eaten alone. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of his success as a kind of loneliness he could no longer justify. He offered thanks that felt clumsy but sincere, then did something he had not planned. He asked about the little girl's Christmas, about what made her eyes light up. The mechanic spoke of small things, of baking gone wrong and fixing toys with tape and patience, of nights spent together because time was the one gift they could always give. The CEO listened, truly listened, and felt his carefully constructed armor crack. He realized that the heart, like any engine, seized when neglected, and that repair required attention, humility, and the willingness to get a little dirty. As he drove away, the street faded behind him, but the warmth lingered. He canceled meetings he had once deemed untouchable. He turned the car toward a quiet neighborhood instead of the office tower. In the days that followed, he returned, not with grand gestures but with presence. He brought groceries, then tools, then time. He learned the names of neighbors, the rhythms of ordinary lives. He found himself laughing without checking the clock, discovering that abundance had nothing to do with excess. Christmas morning arrived without spectacle. Snow fell again, soft and forgiving. The CEO stood in that same modest house, surrounded by people whose generosity had no balance sheet. He helped where he could.